Wake up and pray up. Hey, it's the morning buzz. Thanks so much for joining me. And I can't contain myself. I'm so excited to tell you all about how I got baptized yesterday. Yes, I did get baptized. I'm so excited. I decided to take this step in my faith, and I was water baptized yesterday. So big shout out to my pastor, Pastor Timothy James Farrell. He actually has a show here on Cities 92.9 Sundays, 12:30 to 1. And wow, it was incredible. I went through, it was a water baptism ceremony, and we read out of Matthew when John the Baptist baptized Jesus, and the heavens opened up, and like a dove, that's a metaphor, right? Like a dove, God's spirit just came through and shined on Jesus when he was baptized. And it was amazing to listen to that story and to listen to the importance of having walked or being baptized. So I got to be baptized yesterday, and we're gonna get to a little bit about this song. And Oliver Anthony, he released the song I think yesterday. It's a brand new song. It's really good. He blasts people blindly believing in the media, but he really talks about God in the song. And the song is titled I Want to Go Home. And it's an amazing banger. I can't wait to share that with you. And I'm excited. I'm excited because taking this step means that, I publicly professed that I am a follower of Jesus among friends, family. My friends and family came out. I was baptized in my pastor's pool. It was awesome. It was beautiful weather last night. Little sticky, but it was good. And this is a chance for me to really just continue to try to stay righteous and serve out God's purpose for me in my life. And I truly do believe that's being on the radio here every morning and chatting with you, pulling up a chair, having a cup of coffee. And I know you guys are all biting your fingernails wanting to hear about the Trump interview. I watched the Trump interview with Tucker last night. I didn't catch a whole lot of the debate. I did tune in a little bit and caught something that just made me want to turn off the television. And I turned off the television from watching, that debate. Um, there's something that's just unforgettable that happened in that debate, and I'm sickened to my stomach about it because I really liked Ron DeSantis. I really did. Uh, After last night, I don't even think the guy should be in the Republican Party. Um, there, I said it. Tim Scott, he was up there and he was boldly up there saying that he's going to remove Merrick Garland when he wins in 2024. Wait a second. I wasn't aware that was being debated. It's not really up for debate. Yes, we're going to remove Merrick Garland in 2024. Every Republican candidate up there should have said, yes, we're going to remove Merrick Garland. He should be impeached. The House right now should be impeaching this guy, Merrick Garland. Trump slamming Joe Biden in this Tucker interview. And I've got lots of it to play for you because I don't know if you text me if you've seen it already. 309-451-9299. You can also see me live in the studio, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. That will really help me out. If you've watched it already, I'm going to play a lot of it here on the Morning Buzz because it wasn't on cable news. It wasn't on any kind of mainstream media channel. You have to have had Twitter to watch it. So I watched it and it was really good. Now, I will say this, and before you guys start throwing tomatoes at me, just chill out. I think Tucker did a great job, as always. I think he could have really been harder on Donald Trump. I really wish there wasn't so many softballs, and I wish there was harder questions. Not to say that that Tucker Carlson didn't ask tough questions. My favorite question was, did Jeffrey Epstein kill himself? That was my favorite question, and I was like, and I was kind of disappointed with the answer, but then I was like, oh wait, okay. I was like, all right, I see what you're saying now, Trump. So at first, Trump was like, "Oh, I don't know. I really don't want to say he didn't kill himself." Disclosure: Trump, Trump, buddy, pal. Jeffrey Epstein killed himself or didn't kill himself. he was killed. So Trump suggested that possibly Jeffrey Epstein was killed. They went into discussions about Bill Barr and what a disaster he is. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that. Also, another favorite part of the Trump and Tucker interview was the Joe Biden taking the beach vacations and Trump slamming, like, just went in on him for taking a beach vacation, instead of going to Ukraine, to the war, to or stopping the war in Ukraine, and really even going to Maui. I mean, he's been on vacation, I mean, a third of his presidency. In what job is that acceptable? You can't just take a third of your year, of your time in office and just spend that away from working. You can't do that in any other job, but Joe Biden gets to do it every day, and he wears his little, swim trunks, his turtle swim trunks, and he gets out there on the beach. Like, who's allowing him to go out there on the beach and to have pictures taken of him? So Trump goes in and just slams him for taking beach vacations. Also, we've got to talk about the numbers because the main thing that I was really excited for in this Tucker Carlson interview was that uh, these views were going to be just. I mean, it's insane how many views this has gotten. It's quickly approaching over 100 million. I think it's over 100 million right now. Within the first hour, it was 75 million. Within the first hour of it being up, it was 75 million. So come on, folks. I know that Fox News, I don't know the numbers for Fox News and what kind of stuff they had. And we carried the debate via audio, and you guys can go check it out. Kev Ferris, Josh Bender. They did a live stream last night of the primary debate. I'm going to focus a whole lot on the Tucker Carlson Trump interview today. But if you want to go watch that, that's on YouTube. Kev Ferris Speechless. You can just type that in, and you should be able to find it on our Facebook page as well, Cities 92.9. They went in and discussed the debate. I'm going to discuss the interview a lot this morning. I'll touch on the debate a little bit. There were some things that really peeved me off. And it got to a point where I had to turn off the TV because I was that peeved off. So we're going to talk about that. Like I said, a little later, Oliver Anthony blasting this, blindly believing in the media thing. And I know that you have friends who blindly believe whatever CNN puts out there. So Oliver Anthony creates this song, and it's called "I Want to Go Home." And actually, it like made me tear up a little bit this morning. He talks about God a lot in the song, and I'm fresh off my water baptism. I can still have chlorine in my hair from yesterday from being baptized. So let's get into it. The RNC debate got underway in Milwaukee last night, and the front runner, Donald Trump, instead sat down with Tucker Carlson in an interview, and he said that he doesn't think that Joe Biden's going to make it to the 2024 election. So Trump is having the same speculations we are all having. There's no way that this guy becomes the Democrat nominee. There's no way. And then Trump goes in and he talks about how Democrats are sick people that hate our country and that the US is very fragile right now. And he's not wrong. I said it yesterday. This regime is not a regime that thinks that they are in control. This regime is not a regime that thinks that Donald Trump is on the on the ropes. They don't think that. It doesn't seem like they think that. Uh, they are starting to ramp up the indictments. They are starting to ramp up the COVID-19 mandates. They're starting to ramp up the censorship, especially surrounding this story in Maui. I told you about an email yesterday FEMA sent out mandating that a nonprofit organization stop sharing to social media pictures of the devastation in Maui. So they are freaking out. And that's what's concerning and why I think Donald Trump is starting to say that this is very fragile. These people are very fragile right now because we've backed a dog into a corner, a vicious dog into a corner, and that's this regime. And when regimes are backed into a corner, they resort to things like pre-dawn raids on 75-year-old men, and they take warning shots at people. Okay. That I'm just telling you what happens as what happened in U.S. history. The revolution is here. 1776. Now it's not a war, but wars are come later. The revolution in 1770 in the 1700s started in the hearts and minds of people, and the printing press. Their printing press it's our form of social media now. They're losing control of the printing press, the modern printing press, which is social media. People are sharing things about Maui. People are starting to see this for what it really is. And we have a very scared regime right now. It's a rabid dog in a corner. Um, and it's fragile. And that's what Donald Trump was saying. And, he was asked by Tucker Carlson, what do you think is next? Are they going to kill you? Because they've impeached you, they've indicted you, they've gone after you with everything they've got, censored you, pulled you off social media. What's next? Are they going to try to kill you? And that was Trump's response. He said, these are sick people and they hate our country and it's very fragile right now. So he sees that this is a regime in a corner. And he talks about how he saw tremendous spirit in 2016. And then he says even more in 2020. Quote, I've never seen any kind of spirit like this right now. Even coming up here to do the interview, just the people on the road are absolutely going crazy. I've never seen spirit like this. And the reason why is crooked Joe Biden. He's so bad. He's the worst president in the history of our country. And I don't think he's going to make it to the gate. Meaning Donald Trump does not think that he is going to be the nominee. And then he goes into how he's not a triathlete or an athlete. And it actually is really quite funny. And he talks about how he walks on the grass and he goes, at the White House, it's like 2 inches of grass and he can't even pick up his feet out of the grass. And that's it. It's 2 inches. He can't even lift his feet 2 inches up off the ground. He kind of does like a shuffle. And then Trump goes after him because you remember the video of Joe Biden trying to pick up the chair at the beach. He's messing around with the chair. He can't even pick up these beach chairs. And Trump says, they love pictures of him on the beach. I think he looks terrible on the beach. I, th- I think he looks terrible on the beach, folks. I really do. I really do. Plus, the beach, this is what Trump says, doesn't really represent what a president is supposed to be doing. Of course not. He's supposed to be working. He's supposed to be getting us out of this horrible, horrible war where hundreds of thousands of people are dying, Ukrainians, Russians. That would have never happened under President Donald Trump. And he reiterated that in the Tucker Carlson interview. And he said he's just incompetent, referring to Joe Biden. And Carlson asked him the question. He says, so do you think the rest of the world looks at Joe Biden and thinks somebody else is running the government? And Trump says, yeah. Uh, well, somebody else has got to be running the government because there's no way Joe Biden is running the government. So my question to you this morning is who? Who is running the government? Is it Obama? Is it Michael Obama? Oh, sorry, Michelle Obama. All right, I'm going to be back. Also, devastating news coming out of Maui. And I really didn't want to talk about Maui today, but there was even more news that has come out. Apparently, they barricaded the wildfire victims inside Lahaina, which is this little town on this Hawaiian island of Maui. And there were barricades up, and people were trying to leave, and they kept turning people around. They said, you can't cross, you can't cross, you can't cross. Well, one man, he said, you know what? I'm not listening to these people. I'm going to drive around the barricades. So he did, and he made it out with his life. He's got an interesting story that I want to share with you coming up in just a bit. This is the Morning Buzz. Yeah, Ryan, I'm kind of with you. I think that it's Obama. Also, Soros and Company. I do think that Obama is a globalist, and Soros and Company probably are, working very closely with Obama there. Maui was an example of letting the left control all aspects of emergency powers before and after an emergency. Yes, it's devastating what's going on in Maui. If you guys are watching right now, the live stream, go ahead and smash that like button. I would greatly appreciate it. Um, and share this out with your normie friends because they need to know what is going on. They need to know information about Tucker Carlson and Trump, the interview that they had. I will say this. Tucker seemed to give him a lot of softballs, what I really was hoping for, and I don't think he really asked it uh, in a very definitive way was, "Hey, why in all of this time of your presidency, why did you hand the government over to Fauci during COVID?" Now, I know the answer to this, and I'm sure Donald would give the answer and that he would say, you know, "Well, we didn't know. We didn't know." And I get that, right? Because we didn't know. Trump was like a lot of us during 2020. He was surrounded by people who were calling themselves experts. And why wouldn't they be experts? They've been doing this for 60 plus years and they have degree after degree after degree after degree. And you wouldn't expect people to really, I'm just going to say it point blank, um, chemical warfare and biological warfare, like biochemicals. That's really what this was. It was gain of function research done in Wuhan, China, and we paid for it as the United States, and we lied about it. Why would we lie about it? And you wouldn't think people would stoop that low. You wouldn't think people would lie about ivermectin and how it helped people. Um, you wouldn't think people would lie about the vaccine being effective because, of course, if they were willing to lie about all of that, that means that they were willing to kill people by the thousands, by the millions. This was a global this was a pandemic, um, and you would hope that people would have their intentions not that like, their intentions would be good. And, in that position, you're being advised by all of these people. And I think that it took a while, and you could see on Donald Trump's face. I'll never forget when Deborah Burks, she's up there and she's talking about how she, was masked up and how she had to, stay home for a couple of days and she was socially distanced because she was exposed. And Donald Trump was like listening to her and he was like, my God, this woman's crazy and you can actually see him roll his eyes at Deborah Burks. It's almost like he knew, but also he didn't know enough about these people to completely dismiss them. And I think we're still we're still seeing that in Donald Trump because we're going to get to the Jeffrey Epstein question. And I think that he's not willing to say Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself, point blank, because he still thinks that there's people within this government that are going to get him to the top and going. I think he's obsessed a little bit with his ego, and being liked. And I'm not ripping on Donald Trump. We all have ailments as human beings. And I think Trump recognizes that that is his downfall, but he wants to be in this leadership position. And that doesn't mean he's a jerk. It doesn't mean he's a jag. It just means that he wants to be a leader. He knows that that's his calling in life. And he's he's letting his ego get in the way. And he thinks that he needs these people for some odd reason still in order to get into that position. So I don't think that he's willing to come out and say Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself because he thinks that that is too controversial, and it won't get him into that leadership position. And I think once he gets that leadership position, oh, those people are going to see, you know, hell on earth. He's going to fire all of them. There is going to be revenge Trump. How could there not be? They've indicted him like 67 billion times. I'm exaggerating. But if I were Donald Trump, none of them would have jobs once I'm in. But here's the thing, you've got to get in. So coming out and ripping all of these people. And he did rip in Bill Barr, and he said that he didn't perform a correct investigation when it came to Jeffrey Epstein. That was my favorite question, and he ripped into Bill Barr, and he even suggested that somebody killed him, Jeffrey Epstein. So Donald Trump did suggest that. Tucker Carlson ran with it. Um, so we're going to talk about that here coming up, and plus the debates. There were two moments. There was one moment I really liked, and another moment I absolutely despised. Made me turn off the TV actually, and I stopped watching the debates. So that's next here on the Buzz. Whew, you won't believe it, folks. Maui. I was hesitant on bringing this story because I don't want it to be heavy. Yesterday was pretty heavy morning. I had to tell you about how FEMA was sending out this email to this nonprofit organization telling them that they have to stop sharing things to social media about the damages and the destruction that went on in Maui due to these wildfires. I had to tell you that our government is censoring people from sharing these stories of those who died alone on this island in Lahaina. So the fires in Lahaina on this Hawaiian island, it's called Maui, tore through the community, virtually no warning. Sirens were meant to alert the residents, but they didn't sound the sirens. It just gets worse and worse. So I wake up this morning and yeah, we can talk about the debates. We will get to that. Tucker and Trump, yes. But this story, they had barricades up. What do you mean, Cat? Well, they had barricades up so people couldn't leave and couldn't get out of the danger zone, out of the fire. One guy managed to escape. He didn't listen to the people who were ushering him back into the wildfire. These government officials, I don't know who they were. They were lined up at these barricades and they were telling people to turn back around. And Nate, this guy in Maui, didn't listen. He said, "You know what? No, I'm going to go through these barricades. I'm going to drive through them." He saved his entire family, and, he's got a story that's just gonna chill chill you to the bone here. I don't know why those barricades were up. I don't know why they were telling people to turn around and to go back into the fire and not to go away from the fire, but they blocked access to this highway, and many cars turned back around into the danger zone. So we're gonna get to that story here, Nate's story. It's incredible because I mean, it's just day after day, I find something new about what happened. And I like what Ryan says here on the comments or in the comments section. You can always be a part of the show by texting in to 309-451-9299, or you can comment on our Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, Rumble. I'm live in studio. You can see me. Ryan, he says, uh, you know, this is an example, Maui is an example of letting the left control all aspects of emergency powers before and after an emergency. Yeah, this is just incompetence. And I don't know. The more I look at this, it's like this level of incompetence. It almost makes you want to question, was this done on purpose? Because how could you be so stupid? And why? Why? Why do we have these people in government? So we're going to get to that story. But first, like I said, I watched a little bit of the debate. I had to turn it off after I watched Ron DeSantis. uh, uh, oh my, Ron DeSantis. He's, I liked him a lot. I really had high hopes for the dude. I was hoping that he would be vice president or, something, some sort of serve in some sort of administrative role for Donald Trump, but he blew his chance yesterday. We're gonna get to it, but first, I do want to talk a little bit about Vivek Ramaswamy. Completely just, I mean, there was a murder on live television yesterday. He destroyed Mike Pence in the Republican debate last night. So Vivek is going to definitely come in at second after this debate, this primary debate, which was really the purpose of this primary debate. It's not who's going to be president. Donald Trump is running away with this thing. It's who's going to be the vice president. It's a competition for who's going to be the vice president, or, who's going to be the runner up in the 2024 primary. And that's going to be Vivek Ramaswamy. So let's listen to this. This is murder on live television yesterday. Here we go.
You got people on this stage that won't even talk about issues like Social Security and Medicare. I mean, Vivek, you recently said a president can't do everything. Well, I got news for you, Vivek. I've been in the hallway. I've been in the West Wing. A president of the United States has to confront every crisis facing America. I will put our nation back on the path to growth and prosperity and restore fiscal responsibility, just as I did in Congress and as governor,
Mr. Vice President,
and when I was vice president.
But yeah, I mean, hold on. You were named earlier. I'm going to give Vivek first.
We'll get to both.
Yeah, this isn't that complicated, guys. Unlock American energy. Drill, frack, burn coal, embrace nuclear. Put people back to work by no longer paying them more to stay at home. Reform the U.S. Fed, stabilize the U.S. dollar, and go to war. The only war that I will declare as U.S. president will be the war on the federal administrative state that is the source of those toxic regulations acting like a wet blanket on the economy. So I'm not sure I exactly understood Mike Pence's comment, but I'll let you all parse that out. For me, it's pretty simple. That's something a U.S. president can do with focus, and I'll deliver on it.
Well, let me explain it to you.
Did I just watch a murder? A murder on live television. Too bad nobody saw it because the numbers. And like I said, I wanted to get into the numbers here, but love Vivek Ramaswamy, and he was the only one really who did well. Okay, so this was Vivek Ramaswamy's night, and don't be surprised when he just shoots up in the polls. Nobody saw that amazing murder, though, because on live television of Mike Pence completely getting obliterated by Vivek, because nobody was watching. They were all watching Donald Trump. There's no way they weren't watching Donald Trump on Tucker Carlson on Twitter, because within the first hour of it being posted on X, formerly known as Twitter, it was like 75 million views within the first hour of it being posted. Now, it wasn't a live situation, but now I wake up this morning, it's well over 100 million views, and it's just approaching astronomical numbers. So we're going to get to the Tucker Carlson interview. I've got to take a quick break. Specifically, I want to talk about the Jeffrey Epstein piece where Tucker asked Donald Trump, hey, do you think Jeffrey Epstein killed himself? And Donald Trump's answer was kind of wishy-washy, but it was pretty good at the end. So it was wishy-washy in the beginning, and then you stay tuned and you were like, yes, go Donald. So Donald has a good answer to that question. Plus, I do want to talk about what made me want to turn off the debates last night, Ron DeSantis. Now, I don't know if this is a devastating clip of Ron DeSantis, and this destroyed his run for president. This destroyed any kind of chance he had to ever be in politics again. That's next. Destroyed his chances at a political future, Ron DeSantis. So we're going to talk about it. I don't want to tease it too much, but if you didn't catch that debate last night, all you really needed to watch was this one clip, and then you were like, oh, that's what the debate was all about last night. So let's get to this comment. I think he did make several mistakes with his personnel, and he tried to use who he thought would do well. He made a mistake, and that's not going to happen this time. Yeah. I don't think it's going to happen this time either. However, him running, I'm not too sure. Donald Trump, that is, I'm not too sure he is all in on, running this campaign completely without the establishment. And you can kind of tell that by his answer about Jeffrey Epstein. He's not like gung ho. Yes, Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself, because we all know that Donald Trump believes that to be true. We all know that it's pretty clear Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself. I love this. How is it this guy was charged and convicted of human trafficking, but he trafficked humans to no one? Like, who did he traffic humans to? If he was a human trafficker, right? You have to traffic humans to someone if you're going to be charged with human trafficking. Apparently, he was charged with human trafficking, and he trafficked the humans to no one. He trafficked them to himself. I mean, that's just logic. And, there's simple questions that nobody's willing to answer. And Donald Trump really wasn't willing to answer that question, but you'll hear it here where he talks about Jeffrey Epstein and Bill Barr and how that investigation was supposed to happen, but it didn't. And Donald was really pissed off that that investigation didn't happen, along with the rigged election and how there was evidence. I mean, you watch Ruby Freeman feed these ballots through the same tabulator. I mean, it's the same ballots, and she's feeding these tabulators, or the same ballot in this tabulator multiple times. And that's not supposed to happen. So, I mean, there was clear signs that election fraud happened. Election fraud happens. Okay, that's not crazy to say. Otherwise, election fraud wouldn't exist. We wouldn't have laws against it. Okay, we wouldn't have laws that say, hey, this is how elections are supposed to be conducted, if election fraud never happened. Okay, so there was some fraud in that election. I believe enough fraud to sway the election. It's just a question of how much fraud and where that fraud was. And Donald Trump and his team, they were trying to get to the bottom of that question and to see, uh, hey, were these signatures all legit? Let's do a double verification of these signatures, because that's what's required by Georgia state law, by Georgia election law. We have to double verify these signatures, and we have the right to do that. And now they're being indicted for that, which makes no sense. But Bill Barr, he was supposed to investigate all of this, and he said that he, was going to investigate Jeffrey Epstein, but he didn't. He didn't investigate the rig election. So these personnel decisions, because Bill Barr was his attorney general. Okay, so this was all on Donald Trump. Fauci was his guy. He brought him in there, and I think, like all of us, we didn't know um, who these people were, what they were all about, and Donald Trump exposed that. He gave us the exposure of these people, and he was able to expose that. And you can see on his face, and like I said in the beginning, I don't think that Donald Trump really knew who these people were. They were brought in, and you would think that these people didn't have nefarious intentions. And they've got all these medical degrees, they've got all this time and energy spent in the government and in these agencies, and they've been there for decades, and you would think that they would be the experts if anybody was an expert. But you would think that when it came to people's lives, when it came to telling people about ivermectin and how it saved lives, that they wouldn't lie about that sort of thing. They lied, and they said that that was horse paste and that you shouldn't take it. I lived through COVID. I got COVID. My dad got COVID, and we did a health regimen. It was the Peter McCollum. It was some sort of Zelent, or I forget the guy's name. It was a protocol. The guy died, but it was hydrochloroquine, ivermectin, vitamin D, zinc, and we got a black bag doctor who saved my dad's life. And the moment he got into the hospital, that's when he started to not do well, because they were providing things like remdesivir and things that, like, ventilators, and they were putting ventilators on people way too early. And these were protocols that were killing people in these hospitals. And I'm willing to say that. Are you? We're back. Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. Vivek Ramaswamy just completely obliterating Mike Pence yesterday. And I mean, that was murder on live television. And like I said, I don't think anybody really saw it. Did you watch the debates? Go ahead, text it in to 309-451-9299. That would really help me out. Did you watch the Tucker interview or did you watch the debates last night? I would greatly appreciate it. So that way I know this morning, hey, how many clips should I play of the Tucker interview? I've got it planned out to where I'm going to play a lot of Tucker clips because that was only on Twitter. And, you might not have gotten a chance to see it, although a lot of people have seen it at this point because we're approaching well over 100 million views. Within the first hour of it being posted, we had 75 million views. Just in 1 hour of it being posted, 75 million views. So Trump said Fox News was backing Ron DeSanctimonious. And he was asked, why he didn't attend the debates last night. So I'm going to play a bit of the Tucker interview here, and then we're going to come back and chat a little bit about it. But I'm just going to play the opening bit, and then we're going to get to the Jeffrey Epstein question. Then I've got to get to Ron DeSantis in the debate last night. Folks, this was tragic. He was asked the question, would you support Donald Trump if he is convicted and the nominee? And Ron DeSantis, his reaction to that question tells you all you really need to know about Ron DeSantis. And prior to this, I was excited. I thought Ron DeSantis was going to, beat Vivek Ramaswamy. I thought he was going to be in his element on that debate stage. He was not. He looked very uncomfortable. And after he pulled this little stunt, I shut off the TV and I will never forget it. And I don't even think I would like Ron DeSantis being on some sort of cabinet member or some sort of administrative role for the Trump presidency. I don't even know if he should be governor. I don't think he should be a Republican at this point. So I know those are all hot takes, but I'm really peeved off that he did this. And it just shows he's a terrible leader. And he's got no spine. He's got no spine. All right, let's play the clip here of Tucker and Trump last night. Here we go.
It's debate night, but we're not in Milwaukee.
Mr. President, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Why aren't you at the Fox News debate tonight in Milwaukee?
Well, a lot of people have been asking me that, and many people said you shouldn't do them, but you see the polls have come out, and I'm leading by 50 and 60 points. And, some of them are at 1 and 0 and 2. And I'm saying, do I sit there for an hour or 2 hours, whatever it's going to be, and get harassed by people that shouldn't even be running for president? Should I be doing that? And a network that isn't particularly friendly to me, frankly. They were backing Ron DeSanctimonious like crazy, and now they've given up on him. I mean, it's a lost cause. It reminded me very much of 2016. In 2016, I went through the same stuff and had to fight them all the way. And then they became very friendly after I won, or just about when I was winning. But I just felt it would be more appropriate not to do the debate. I don't think it's right to do it. If you're leading by 50, 60, I have one problem leading by 70 points. And I'm saying, why am I doing it? And I'm going to have 8 people, 10 people, whoever made the debate. I don't know how many it is, but I'm going to have all these people screaming at me, shouting questions at me, all of which I love answering, I love doing, but it doesn't make sense to do them. So I've taken a pass, as you probably noticed.
Well, I did. I'm grateful that you did. It's interesting, though, because you spent a lot of your career in television.
Yeah.
You had a top show in television on NBC. But you don't feel the need now running for president to do television, obviously. Do you think television is declining?
Well, according to a poll that I guess we just saw, it just came out where it's down like 30, 35%. But I think they were referring to cable. I think cable's down because it's lost credibility. MSNBC, or as they say, MSDNC, is so bad. It's so wrong what they write and what they do and what they say. It's, it's fake news, as I said. I think I came up with that term. I hope I did, because it's a good one. It's not tough enough anymore. It's corrupt news. Really what you do is call it corrupt news, but somehow that doesn't play as nicely. But it is corrupt news. So you have MSNBC and you have CNN, who's absolutely doing no ratings at all. I mean, they're dead. But they're doing none because they don't have credibility. They really don't have credibility. Fox is way down, as you know. And the good old days.
And just some inside baseball for you folks. That's the Tucker and Trump interview. I was playing a bit of it here for you on the Morning Buzz. If you didn't catch it on Twitter, some inside baseball. Fox News, there was practically like a media blackout. So this was the first time ever where Fox did not stream it to YouTube. And we were thinking to ourselves, how do we get the Fox News channel to broadcast it onto our stations? And what we were going to do was carry the debate live on the radio, but we decided to just do the live stream with Kevin reacting to the primary debate with his friend Josh Bender. You can find that on YouTube. It's Kev Ferris, Speechless. He's going to be joining me here in the 8 o'clock hour, so you guys can get close on the edge of your seat there, because he is a Ron DeSantis guy, and I'm not very happy with Ron. But we were like, what do we do? Well, we're a Fox affiliate because you get Fox News at the top of the hour. And what we did, we carried that via our satellite. We get it through an unanchored program here on the board, and we took the audio because we're an affiliate and we can. But what was going on was this media blackout, and you weren't able to stream the primary debates on YouTube. Fox News tried to do an exclusive thing. It wasn't on any other cable network, or CNN didn't pick it up. There was nothing like that. And they were carrying the debate exclusively. So, yeah, it was like a media blackout. You weren't allowed to carry the debate and share the debate out on YouTube. So they were really trying to corner you, and they were trying to force you to watch it on cable TV. And I like how Donald Trump answered that question. People just don't trust the dang thing anymore. They don't trust the cable news networks anymore. And I'm very excited to see Tucker Carlson launch this platform on X, formerly known as Twitter, and it's like independent journalism, and he can make it his own. He's not beholden to anybody. He's not beholden to BlackRock or investors like Fox News Corporation is. And he was really able to run with it. Now, I am a little disappointed because I wish Tucker would have asked a little bit harder of questions, because he's known to ask pretty tough questions. He did ask a couple of tough questions of Donald. I really wish he would have asked Donald, and I didn't catch it in the interview. To be honest, I didn't watch the entire 45 minutes. I watched a majority of it. I'd say about 30 minutes. But from that 30 minutes I watched, it was like, Tucker, are you going to ask Donald why he gave the country over to Fauci during the 2020 pandemic? Are you going to ask him why he took the vaccine and if he thinks the vaccine is effective? Why does he think that? What does he think about myocarditis rising in young men? That's the questions I wanted to hear Tucker ask. I don't think he asked him. But what was worse was this primary debate. Ron DeSantis. Wow. I can't even begin to express how devastating this one clip of Ron DeSantis is. And this is the kind of stuff that's unforgettable. He was looking around for how to answer this question. He was frantically looking around the debate stage. And first off, a leader does not look to others for answers. It's kind of defeating of the very definition of a leader. You're going to be the leader of the free world, America. You probably shouldn't be looking around for other people for the answer that you're going to give. The question is, quote, would you support President Donald Trump if he is convicted and the nominee? And after looking at the first four people there on the stage, I think it was Nikki Haley, Vivek Ramaswamy, a couple of others who said that they were going to support Donald Trump if he was convicted and the nominee. Ron DeSantis was hesitant, and he kind of put up his hand. He limp wristed it, and I mean, wow. You mean to tell me you're not going to support the nominee, Donald or Ron? You're not going to support him, Ron? Come on. What's wrong with you, pal? You limp wristed. He like looked around and then he was like, I guess I'll put up my hand. You're not a Republican, dude. All right. I'm going to be back. We're going to talk about how Donald Trump Jr. and his wife in the post-debate spin room, the Fox News security was ordered to block Donald Trump Jr. and his wife from entering the spin room when they attempted to enter last night. So that's big news. I'll be back on the other side. This is the Morning Buzz. Morning, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. Liberal logic. Charge anyone with a crime before said crime occurs. Yes. If you're watching right now, go ahead and smash that like button. Share this out with your normie friends. Kevin Lauer, yes, we are in a culture war. I believe we're in an actual revolution. Now, in 1776, I got to look this up. So let's see. Hearts and Minds. Revolution quote, I think was John Adams, but I've got to fact check myself on that. Okay, yep, it was John Adams. He says the revolution was in the minds and hearts of people and change in their religious sentiments of their duties and obligations. So, yes, there is a great awakening happening. I do believe people are coming toward or going towards Christ. As always, Rooted Apparel is in the description. You guys can get your Rooted Apparel, Jesus is King shirts. I'm not wearing my Rooted Apparel today, but I will go buy some more because I'm running out of shirts from Rooted Apparel. But they've got Jesus is King shirts. They've got Pray shirts. They've got these patriotic Pray shirts that I love. And they've even got God Moving Mountains Bible verse. And it's a big mountain here and I love it. I love the shirts there at Rooted Apparel. You can get a discount, promo code CAT at checkout. That's 20% off your Rooted Apparel. And the link is in the description. So be sure to go visit the shop, their local business here. And with all this uncertainty, we can remain certain that Christ is King. And we need to be able to have conversations about the gospel with people. So we're rooted apparel. Okay, so changing or the minds and hearts of people, that's where the revolution starts. And John Adams said that. And I believe the revolution is already here in our minds and in our hearts. And this revolution is currently being fought via the printing press and modern day printing press, which is social media. Social media has a big part in this revolution, and you can see that they're starting to lose control, the regime of the narrative. They're pushing out a narrative now that the elections are going to be canceled and elections aren't good. So the New York Times yesterday, Atlantic, they printed headlines, Americans vote too much. Elections are bad for democracy. They're already seeding this narrative that elections are bad and that we shouldn't have them. They might just cancel the 2024 election. And I do believe that's where we'll be at. It won't be a normal election. It'll either be canceled or they're going to knock Donald Trump off the ballot and we get one option, which will be Joe Biden or whoever the nominee is. There was speculation yesterday on the Tucker interview that it was going to be Gavin Newsom. So we'll have to see about all that. But I don't think that there's going to be a normal 2024 election. So we're back. We'll talk about more of the Tucker interview. And I've got to tell you about CNN, how they've got an article out there saying that you've got to mask up again. It's fake news, MSNBC. Yes, the DNC. the media, they are just a fourth branch of government. They're an arm for the Democrat Party. That's what they are, and Donald Trump talked about that. And you'll be shocked to find out that Fox News actually barricaded and blocked physically with their bodies some security guards. Donald Trump Jr. and Kim, his wife, formerly married, I think, to Gavin Newsom, which is kind of funny, but they were blocked from entering the post-debate spin room. Although there was, talk about how the surrogates were going to be allowed into the spin room for Donald Trump. There was talk about how they weren't allowed into the spin room, but Matt Gaetz said that that was, not true and that they were going to be there. But it turns out Fox News actually barricaded Donald Trump Jr. and his wife from entering. So let's take a listen to what that sounded like. Here we go.
To ban people from actually having discourse about politics.
How un-American.
Probably shouldn't surprise any of us, but that's what it is. And I've been told by others that I would be able to go in. So they said we were able to go in, then they said they weren't. Now that we're here, and the candidate that
said you can't go in the spin room.
They're telling me right
He's
now,
saying
Fox
Fox
won't
said
let
that.
me into the spin
But
room.
that's what the
You work
American
for
people
Fox
should know.
News,
This
sir?
is the kind of
They're
network
telling
they
him, he
are.
works for security here, but they're telling him that I'm not allowed to go in there. Because the candidates that they've been boosting while simultaneously trying to cut down Trump for the last, 2 years, didn't perform as they had hoped. So they can't have someone who can maybe be a representative of my father. Just like a few weeks ago when I was canceled after the first indictment, I was scheduled to go on. And about 5 minutes before I'm on, I found out I'm no longer on because apparently I wouldn't be a great surrogate to talk about my father's indictment. Just so we understand what we're dealing with here. So it shouldn't surprise any of us. And it's also why Trump was 100% right to not go to this debate.
Exactly.
It's beneath him, and when you know that you're walking into a setup because of exactly these kinds of circumstances, you understand exactly what's going on in mainstream media, even conservative.
It's very
I like to
un-American.
knock the one
It's
side,
against
but I got to
First
call
Amendment.
balls and strikes. This is no different than what we see from the Democrats. It's no different than what we're seeing from the Fulton County DA when they're trying to put a gag order on Donald Trump so he can't defend himself in court proceedings. And more importantly, to function as an intimidation tactic for anyone else who would defend him, where the DA there is then saying, hey, we're going to add you people to the indictment if you take part in this. I don't know, guys, doesn't reek of democracy. All the people that have been screaming that for the last 6 or so years, especially during the Trump presidency, when I believe we had a lot more freedom than we do now, or certainly since this administration's taken over, are
Incredible. They blocked him physically with their bodies from going into the post-debate spin room to answer questions from the media and to be a representative for his father. His father didn't attend the debates, but he sent a surrogate in his place. And originally we thought that was going to be allowed, but they blocked him physically with their bodies. It reeks of undemocratic. It's undemocratic. They're going to steal this 2024 election and they might just cancel it. I'm back next. All right, folks, we're going to be back here in just a bit. I've got so much to tell you about Tucker Carlson, this interview. They talked about Tucker Carlson's firing. Trump had a reaction to Tucker Carlson's firing that I want to share with you. And then my all-time favorite part of the interview was when Donald Trump answered questions about Jeffrey Epstein. Tucker asked him, "Hey, do you think Jeffrey Epstein killed himself?" And Tucker, I mean, that was probably one of the hardest questions Tucker asked. He didn't ask too many hard questions, which I was a little disappointed about. I really wish he would have asked some more hardballs, hardball questions. But this was one of the most hardball questions I think he could have asked. So I'm glad he asked it. Donald Trump, he gave a pretty good response. We're going to break that down here for you. Plus, CNN now saying that you have to mask up. They claim that it's time to break out the masks for this new COVID surge. And the network gave COVID reality check, is what they told their readers, and that the virus is here to stay. So they are breaking out the mask mandates again. They're getting the media on board with the COVID mandates. Plus, I do want to play this song for you. Oliver Anthony, he came out with a new one, and who it is good. So we've got all of that and more ahead on the Morning Buzz. I can't begin to express how devastating this clip of Ron DeSantis is, where he's looking around on stage and he's looking for an answer from the rest of the candidates there with him on the primary debate stage last night. And the question was, would you support President Donald Trump if he was the nominee, if he was convicted and the nominee? Are you still going to support the nominee of the Republican presidential election, which is huge, to answer no? That means that you hate Donald Trump that much that you are willing to give the election over to Joe Biden. If you don't throw your support behind, if you wouldn't vote for President Donald Trump over Joe Biden. I mean, that's essentially what Ron DeSantis said. He said he would rather vote for a Joe Biden or give it up to Joe Biden instead of supporting President Donald Trump if he's wrongly convicted. So he looks around on the stage, and then you see his limp wrist go up after looking around on stage frantically for his answer. And then his limp wrist goes up and he kind of raises his hand. That's the kind of stuff that's unforgettable. And I'm very disappointed in Ron DeSantis. Very disappointed. Fox News, they ordered security to block Donald Trump Jr. and his wife from attending this post-debate spin room. A spin room is just a media room. I've been in them before. I've been in media rooms where they send surrogates. So, for example, I think the last spin room I was at, it was Richard Irvin's spin room when he was running for governor. And there's been people who send surrogates all of the time. So in these spin rooms, a lot of the time, what people will do is send surrogates if they're out on the campaign trail or if they have prior obligations. You can send surrogates to the spin room to answer questions of the media. And Don Jr., the son of Donald J. Trump, the Republican frontrunner for the presidential run here, he was blocked from entering the spin room. Although there was there was talk about this earlier in the day yesterday. Matt Gaetz said that there were going to be surrogates allowed in the spin room after the debate, and he said the Trump team was going to have a presence at the debate. Donald Trump just wasn't going to attend the debate himself. And we've heard from Donald on that. He says, I don't have to go. He goes, I don't need to go. I don't have to try to defend myself against these media people who are going to be shouting questions at me. There's no reason for me to go to this debate. However, I am going to send some surrogates. What's concerning is you've got Fox News blocking Don Jr. and his wife, the surrogates for the Trump team, the Republican frontrunner, from going in to the debate spin room. I mean, incredible. So Trump said that fake news wasn't a strong enough term for CNN and MSNBC. He says they're corrupt news. And I agree with you, Donald Trump. So after speaking with Tucker Carlson, they addressed Tucker Carlson's firing from Fox News. And he said, Tucker, you know better than anybody. I think that was a terrible move to get rid of you. You had the number one you were number one in television, and all of a sudden we're doing this interview, but we'll be bigger in the ratings using this crazy forum that you're using. And he's referring to X because that's where this interview was on, where they did it. And he said it's going to have way more views in ratings than the debate or the competition, because it really wasn't a debate either. Really was just a competition to see who's going to get that second place spot. And it's definitely going to be Vivek Ramaswamy, because Ron DeSantis's limp wrist going up there after the question, hey, are you going to support Donald Trump if he's convicted and still the nominee? So here's my favorite part of the Tucker interview, where Tucker asked Donald Trump if Jeffrey Epstein killed himself, if he thinks that Jeffrey Epstein killed himself. That was probably one of the most hardball questions that Tucker Carlson asked. It was a lot of softballs, but this was one of the more hardball questions. You can text in 309-451-9299. What did you watch? Did you watch the Tucker on X interview, or did you watch the primary Republican debate? This is the Morning Buzz. I'm live in studio, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. You can see the Tucker interview with me in studio if you were to tune in via Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Rumble. Let's take a listen to this question. Do you think Jeffrey Epstein killed himself?
Epstein killed himself sincerely.
I don't know. I will say that, he was a fixture in Palm Beach.
Yeah.
I don't know what Barr said about it either. I have no idea what he said. What did he say? He killed himself, probably?
He said he killed himself and that they were going to do this investigation. They never did the investigation. It's never been public.
Well,
and they hid it. And why are they doing that? And clearly Barr knew. But why would Bill Barr be covering up the death of Jeffrey Epstein?
Bill Barr didn't do an investigation on the election fraud either. Okay. He said he did, and he pretended he did, but he didn't. McSwain, the U.S. attorney in Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, said Barr just wouldn't let him do it. It was crazy. Barr became so petrified, so frightened of being impeached. They were going to impeach him. I don't know if you remember it.
Yeah.
It's not a big moment in history. But they said, we're going to impeach. They play a much rougher game, the left, the lunatics. And they were going to impeach Bill Barr, and he was petrified. Now, how do you not get impeached? Don't do any of this stuff. But he didn't do the job there. I don't know what he did with Epstein, but possibly he didn't.
Do you think it's possible that Epstein was killed?
Oh, sure, it's possible. I mean, I don't really believe. I think he probably committed suicide. He had a life with, beautiful homes and beautiful everything, and he all of a sudden he's incarcerated and not doing very well. I would say that he did, but there are those people. There are many people. I think you're one of them, right? But a lot of people think that he was killed. He knew a lot on a lot of people.
He was killed.
You think so?
I think the closer you look, I'm not a conspiracy person at all. I believe everything I hear. But yeah, the closer you look into it, I mean, the Attorney General of the United States, your Attorney General, clearly lied about the Epstein death.
Yeah,
and
he was.
Why?
He was certainly. It wasn't well done. They had no cameras. They had no anything. Everybody was sleeping, and the case could be made. Look, I'm not going to get involved in it, but I can tell you a case could be made either way. But it certainly wasn't the most well run.
So there we have some humility. So it was his Attorney General, Bill Barr. I know that was a longer clip, folks, but the question was, did Jeffrey Epstein kill himself? I don't believe he killed himself. I think he was killed, because it doesn't make sense, folks, that he was charged with human trafficking, but apparently he didn't traffic humans to anybody. In order to be charged for human trafficking, you have had to have trafficked those humans to somebody. Where is the little black book? Who were his clients? And I don't know. I think it's possible that somebody killed him. And I like how Donald Trump answered that. He was very careful with his answer. But a couple of things. He had some humility. He said it wasn't well done. And he took ownership of that, which is something Trump doesn't do very often. Okay. He's got a big ego. And he doesn't take responsibility for a whole lot of failures that he might have. Because he's a winner, and nobody, naturally, humans don't want to admit when they have failure. Right there, Donald Trump admits that there was a failure on behalf of Bill Barr specifically, and he said that it was because he was petrified of being impeached. The left lunatics were going to impeach him, and he didn't want to touch the Jeffrey Epstein thing with a 9 foot, like a 44-foot pole or whatever. Like he didn't want to touch that with anything. Like he didn't want to get into that. So yeah, I think that was a great answer from Donald Trump. It wasn't as strong as I would have liked. I would have liked for Donald Trump. Wouldn't you have loved to hear Donald Trump? Yeah, Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself. That would have been great. Do you want to shift gears? Oliver Anthony dropping this latest single, I Want to Go Home. Now, he uploaded this clip of the song to TikTok back in March, but this is the first time he's released this song in full. While Richmond, North of Richmond, was about the overall sense of of his environment, this one is more personal. So Richmond, North of Richmond, we all kind of feel that your dollar's taxed to no end, your dollar ain't worth anything. And we know the song Richmond, North of Richmond, and we can relate to that song. Now, this song is a bit more personal. Whiskey Riff, it's a country website, and they describe the song as speaking of family farms being sold, urban spread, so cities just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and family farms being sold, and farmers, signing away easements to things like solar panels and wind farms, or solar panel farms and windmills, and people blindly believing the media. And he ties all of that together, and he was asking the Lord to take him home. So this is an amazing song that was just released by Oliver Anthony. Let's take a listen. Here we go.
Up in the psych ward, 'cause every day living in this new world is one too many days to me. Son, we're on the brink of the next world war, and I don't think nobody's praying no more, and I ain't saying I know it for sure. I'm just down on my knees begging the Lord to take me home. I wanna go home. I don't know which road to go. It's been so long. I just know I didn't used to wake up feeling this way, cussing myself every damn day. There's always some kind of bill to pay. People just doing what the rich man say. I wanna go home.
Wow. Absolutely amazing. It's this is just a very personal song. And but ask yourself, really, just ask yourself how many people feel the exact same way he's feeling right now. Starting from just pick a random date in March of 2020. We've all been struggling with some form of Lee is what I call economically, socially, spiritually, psychologically. We've all been struggling because of the pandemic, and since 2020, we've been we've been struggling. On more days than that, I find myself a lot of the times just staring off into nothing and spacing out and blankly just just trying not to feel what's going on, because the wheels feel like they're coming off of the planet at times. And on those days, I try to log off and get some fresh air, go touch some grass, and to really just pull myself out of the news. Sometimes you have to do that because it does feel like the wheels are just coming off of the planet sometimes. And I know progressives, they're going to want to cancel this song. I suggest you go listen to the song in its entirety. And if not you, maybe somebody is struggling with one of those leaves economically, socially, psychologically, spiritually. Reach out to them, tell them you love them. The progressives, they're going to try to cancel this song. They're going to try to delegitimize it and destroy it because once again, too many conservatives are going to like this song, and the left just can't have that. If we like something, they've got to destroy it. My favorite right now is where they're trying to claim that Oliver Anthony is all AstroTurf. So he's fake grassroots and it's not authentic how he came to fame because some marketing guy sent out a few tweets, right? They're trying to say that this wasn't authentic because, to them, you can only be an overnight success if you're seen by some record executives performing in some bougie coffee shop in New York somewhere. But if it makes the leftists feel better that you think that this is all right-wing conspiracy AstroTurf, um, then go ahead, keep thinking that, because this guy is the first ever, without a record label, to shoot up #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. So it really doesn't matter what you think about Oliver Anthony. It really doesn't matter what conspiracy you believe, because the apolitical people in the middle, the people who are too busy outside touching grass, rather than being very busy or doing things online, um, they're the ones who really like this song. And national elections, you have 40% conservative, 40% leftist, and 20% of the middle that move from cycle to cycle. So the 20% has found a spiritual connection with Oliver Anthony's songs, and no other artist has been able to do that, I think, in my lifetime anyway, in this generation. It's very soul refreshing to see this happen in real time, where you start to see that 20% in the middle that is just too busy to deal with politics, and they're really making a connection with Oliver Anthony's song, and I'm excited. We're going to be back here on the Morning Buzz talking about CNN claiming that, oh boy, the masks, they got to come back. There's a new COVID surge out there. Plus, Maui, this story coming out of Maui is disturbing. Apparently, there were barricades set up to where the people of Maui who were victims of this wildfire couldn't leave the island if they wanted to. One guy managed to not listen to the people at the barricades. He drove around the barricades and saved his entire family, and he gives his story. So I'm going to give that to you here on the Buzz. Come back after the break. Yeah, first singer in a very long time that moves me to a point of goosebumps. Thanks so much for watching, folks. Yeah, I am so glad that I um, came across that song today. So, 2020, we all felt it. I told you, we were suffering with one of these leads, whether that's economically, or psychologically, socially, spiritually. All of us were, okay, and I don't care who you are. You were suffering during the pandemic, and a lot of people did suffer during the pandemic, and they still are. So back in 2020, you guys know that's lost my job, found Christ, and yesterday was a big day for me because I was baptized in my pastor's pool. Shout out to the Tabernacle, and that was a step in my faith where I have publicly professed that Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior. And during 2020, lost the job, decided to, get this job here at Cities 92.9. I had a big decision to make: more money or take the job with less money in a smaller market, but do what I love and not bend my knee to corporate media after getting this degree. And I made a big decision, and I chose to this decision after reading a little bit out of the Bible. I've always been a Christian, but at that time, I mean, I was going through some personal things. I think a lot of and just a personal, story. Atheist. I was with an atheist for quite some time, and that had a big effect on my mental health. And uh, went through heartbreak, had to get a new place, had to go start my life over practically. And I found God. I had a friend reach out and say, "Hey, uh, why don't you try praying out loud? Just try it." And I was like, yeah, I mean, I guess I'm a Christian. I haven't prayed out loud in a while. I haven't gone to church in a while because, the pandemic, closed down churches. You had to wear a mask and things like that. I wasn't really all about that. And I wasn't going to church during college. And I just said, you know what? I'm going to pray out loud. I'm going to ask Jesus to come help me and God to come help me. So I did. And I meant that prayer with every atom of my being. And the next day, it was like the lights had turned back on in my life and everything just started to go up. And this is just incredible. Like, it's just so supernatural what happened in my life. It was just a complete 180. And yesterday I decided to get baptized. And that's taking your faith to a whole new level because you're publicly professing it before people. And it was great. So this song gave me goosebumps this morning, and I was like, yes, you feel that way, but then you call out to God, and it's like the lights just come back on in your life. And Oliver Anthony has talked about God several times. He's opened up the book of Psalms and read it before people, before he actually performed his song Richmond, north of Richmond in North Carolina at some farmer's market. And he's just such an authentic dude. I know a lot of you probably watching have a similar testimony. You bend your knees, you ask God to come into your life, and you accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior, and then things just start to get better. Like that, it's like magic. Like I can't even explain how much better my life is now that Jesus is the Lord and Savior, and that Jesus is the one I consult. I mean, he's the companion, right? I consult him over everything. Like, God, what am I going to have for breakfast this morning? And it just is just this weight that's lifted off of your chest. And you can see in this song, I mean, the lyrics that Oliver Anthony has here, he truly does feel this way. And he talks about how he wants to go home. And humans, we have this like urge to be with God. There's this separation, and that's the separation of sin, right? God used to walk with Adam and Eve, and then when Eve took the apple, it was the first sin, and that's what separates us. But through Jesus Christ, we get to know Him, and through that sacrifice, we get to be with them again. And Oliver Anthony, this is personal for him, and you can see that where he just calls out to God and he says, I want to go home. I want to be with you. I don't want to deal with this world. I don't want to deal with work. I don't want to deal with this Richmond keeping me down. I don't want to deal with any of it. And I just want to be with you. So obviously, Oliver Anthony is a man of God. We made the right guy famous. Um, and he's still here with us. So he got out of this, state of suicide or state of depression, and he was able to find an outlet and a purpose to serve the Lord. And clearly, he's living out his purpose. So, yeah, go Oliver Anthony. We're back. Morning. Well, the masks are back. back. They're back. The masks. These so-called experts on CNN are saying that there's this big surge in COVID-19 cases and that the Biden White House is looking to reinstate pandemic era mandates. And this article titled in CNN this morning just made my eyebrows raise. It may be time to break out the masks against COVID, some experts say. CNN is encouraging their readers to dust off those N95 masks. So they've got this doctor, he's a professor, he's a stuffy guy, and he told the network that, you could be high risk and we have to return to masking. And that includes 80-year-old Democrat President Joe Biden, which is interesting that he gave that little tidbit there. And he said, quote, if you're a caregiver for someone who's increased risk of complications following infection, then you should consider putting on a mask. Anthony Fauci, Tony himself, has said that the masks don't work. They might block a droplet or two, but at the end of the day, they're more harmful than good because you're touching your face, right, with the mask on, and you're not doing regular mask changes, and they're not effective. Okay, it's not me saying it. It's Tony Fauci, the guy in charge of COVID during the 2020 pandemic. And now this guy's coming out here saying you should wear a mask. CNN, they are installing fear into their readers. And the network did explain in this article that Americans aren't too worried about this surge in COVID-19 cases and they're reluctant to return to the pandemic era mandates. Yeah, because you all lied to us. You said that the masks were effective. They're not. The vax were that they're effective. They're not. The only thing that was effective, ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, vitamin D. I do suggest. Now, I'm not denying COVID. COVID exists. It's very real. It's always been here. It's not this surge. They can't even pinpoint what variant is surging. There's a highly mutated variant. It's BA 2.86. Then there's another one. It's the EG.5. I don't know. These all kind of sound crazy. But they can't even really pinpoint what strain is established itself as some sort of dominant strain. So they don't even know what one it is that is surging. Okay, so that they don't even know what one it is that's surging right now, then I don't think we should really be all that concerned. But the one thing that helped people, ivermectin, they said that that's horse paste and you shouldn't take it. They didn't push vitamin D, zinc, vitamins, getting outside, getting outdoors, exercising. They're not telling people how to be healthy against the virus. Okay, I've lived it. I had it. My dad had it. We've seen their protocols. Their protocol is get fat and vax up. That's what their protocol is. And wear a mask. Doesn't matter how fat you are. It doesn't matter how many or what. Just wear a mask and get your jab. No, be healthy. Eat healthy. Get vitamin D. Take ivermectin. Have some ivermectin on hand. I get mine at freedoctor.com. That's where I've gotten my ivermectin. So I'm getting a couple of doses sent to me. So freedoctor.com. They're not a sponsor. That's where I personally get it. So yeah, there's a couple of colleges, they're mandating that the college students wear masks, specifically medical grade masks, surgical masks, N95s, KN95s. Now, the CDC did issue a warning last week about this new variant. We'll have to see if the Biden White House mandates pandemic era mandates and starts to roll out these vaccine mandates for federal employees again. We'll have to see because I think that's coming. The White House has signed several contracts to purchase COVID-19 test kits and equipment. Now, they're very vague in these contracts. I've got them in front of me here, and they're spending money on hiring, quote, advisors for COVID safety protocols. And it's all very vague in these contracts, but they're spending millions of dollars on COVID-19 test kits. And then you look at the dates on these things, they're spending money out to 2028. So what did they know that we don't know? Are we going to be in lockdowns for 5 years, 2028? Who knows? Do have to take a break a little bit later in the 8 o'clock show. I am going to be sharing, or in the 8 o'clock hour, I want to share with you guys the town of Lahaina in Hawaii, Maui. There were some people who were trying to leave the island and get onto a highway to flee the fires, and there were barricades up blocking people, and then they were turning people around back to the fires. Nate, he said, screw you guys, I'm going to go around these barricades. So he did, and he got his family out alive. So he shares his story, and I've got it here for you on the buzz. Up next, Scott Robbins with Scott's Takes.
You know,
What'd you watch? What'd you do?
I watched the debate. I did. I knew I would get pieces of the Tucker interview later. But I decided to watch it, and I could have said that about the debate too. But I watched it in real time. And I have a friend of mine, and she and I were going back and forth on some things we saw. She was very impressed with Nikki Haley. I think a lot of people were. I mean, you talk about who won, who lost, all this stuff, and everybody's got their opinion, and they're all different for the most part. What I'm seeing more people talk about today was the winner in their mind anyway, and these are the people who, watch these things and give them, grades or percentages or whatever, was DeSantis and Ramaswamy. Mm-hmm. Now, you may differ from your opinion on that, having watched it. Ramaswamy's interesting. He walks his tightrope because he can come across as sort of a smug, smart alecky kind of guy, right? Mm-hmm. That you want to punch in the face. I mean, he can come across that way. And I thought Chris Christie had a decent line. Yeah, well, Chris Christie had a decent line when he said, "I feel like I'm debating chat." Yeah, but I thought for Christie, that's a pretty good line. Christie handles himself really well because he's conditioned to be in front of the camera and sound bites and that sort of. He gets it. He doesn't stand any chance of winning, but he's a terrible candidate outside of that. But he does understand how all this works. It's just, I watch these things. I think it's very hard when I walk away from it. I go, who won? I don't know. And did you watch it, Kat? Did you watch the whole thing? Or
I didn't watch the whole thing. I watched a little bit of it. I turned it off at a specific moment because I was peeved off. But yeah, when you ask who won, I think none of them did. To be honest, I think it's a competition for VP or cabinet spots. I really do. I don't think Trump is not going to be the nominee.
I think right up front, Nikki Haley would make somebody a great VP choice. I mean, if that's what it were, because I thought she came across. She's fairly warm, but she's fierce too at the same time. I don't know. Am I making any sense when I say that?
Yeah. The only concern I have with Nikki Haley is this neocon crap where she's just wanting to, Ukraine, and funnel.
No, I get it, and we're not going to find a perfect candidate. We're just not. Yeah. I mean, what my deal is this: what candidate has the best chance of beating that feeble old man that's running this country right now? Who has the best chance of beating him? That's who I'm going to support. I haven't made up my mind yet. I mean, I'll support whoever the nominee is, don't get me wrong. But I mean, in terms of a primary, who do I want to see that I think has the best chance of beating Joe Biden? That's the guy I want, whoever that is, guy, gal, whatever. Mm-hmm. And we'll see. But there were moments. I mean, everybody had their moments last night. I mean, Ramaswamy had his, DeSantis had his, certainly Nikki Haley had hers. I don't know. Marjorie Taylor Greene didn't care. She was
she's watching Tucker on Twitter. I watched the whole thing on Tucker on Twitter. The one thing I will say about that interview that really peeved me off was that Tucker kept giving him softballs. The one hardball question was, do you think Jeffrey Epstein killed himself? And Trump, in very rare moments, will he humble himself and admit wrong on anybody, like whether that's his team or himself,
right?
Because he is not a humble dude. Okay,
no.
And this was the first time where he goes, Bill Barr screwed up. That attorney general screwed up. And Tucker made it a point to say, he's your attorney general. Bill Barr was supposed to be in charge of that investigation, and he was your attorney general. I really wish that Tucker would have asked him, hey, why turn over the keys to Fauci during the pandemic? Do you believe the vaccine is effective? Do you have the vaccine? Will you be getting a booster? I would have loved to seen those questions asked, but Tucker did give him some softballs. Now, not to say they were all softballs, because that Jeffrey Epstein question was loaded. And Trump's answer was very, very good. He actually humbled himself, which anytime Trump humbles himself, I just want to do a round of applause. I'm just, go Trump.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I'm a little surprised just because I have not seen the interview yet. I've just seen some bits of the Tucker interview. Because we were talking about yesterday on the other show. We were talking about the fact that, we didn't feel like Tucker was going to throw softballs. because he's been critical of Trump. I mean, openly critical on his show when it was on Fox. And I thought, well, it doesn't appear he's going to do that. I'm a little disappointed when you said that, because I was kind of hoping for something a little more journalist-y.
Yeah.
I made up that word.
Now, there were some, but not nearly as many as I wanted.
Okay. Well, I'll go back and watch it. I don't know. It's you come away from these things, and I do this all the time. I have expectations going in that aren't met. Then I realize these people are running for office. They're probably not going to say anything that's going to tank them.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you do. You're playing defense the whole night.
Yep.
I mean, very rarely do you go on the offense there. I thought Ramaswamy, though, I was watching him and I thought, man, this guy, I mean, again, there were a few moments, but he was the only one that stood up and said, hey, this green thing is a hoax. This is nuts.
Green weenie stuff.
Yeah, this is nuts. This is no good. And people are saying that's when the audience booed him. I don't think that's when they booed him. I think they booed him when he was talking about everybody on stage being bought and paid for. And then he went right into
that audience is not the base of the Republican Party, because Fox News, they stacked that audience with establishment shills. I'll tell you right now that's not the base of the party. If they
I don't think so either. I mean, it's again, how do you gauge these things and what do you look for? I don't think anybody made a fatal mistake. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
I don't think anybody made a fatal mistake.
I personally think, Scott, and I know people are like, he actually came back and he said that, he wasn't fond of the hand raising thing. To me, that was devastating, enough to the point where I wanted to tune out of the debate entirely.
Oh, you didn't like that?
No, because he limp wristed it up there and he was like scared to say that he was going to support Trump for the nomination. Like, if he's the nominee, that he was going to support Trump. Like, we know Trump would be wrongly convicted. Come on, these indictments are crap.
But I thought he didn't want to answer the question. I think a lot of them didn't want to answer the question. So he sort of stood for all of them last night.
Yeah, none of them,
with the exception of just nobody wanted to answer the question. That's a tough question.
Yeah.
And I think they were playing the room, looking at the room. And I think DeSantis bailed them all out on that question. But anyway, again, you can look at it. We can look at it one of two ways. I was like, hey, well, at least he went, hey, this is dumb. What are we talking about here? Let's move on to something else. And they eventually did. But anyway, the abortion issue came up last night. And I thought Nikki Haley handled that one okay. She's like, we can sit. And she said, I'm 100% staunchly, pro-life. But the idea you can get a federal ban with the amount of senators you need to overturn that just isn't realistic. So we have to work state by state on this. Mm-hmm. And I agree with her, because federally that's a non-starter.
Yeah. Well,
you're never going to have 60 senators that are going to vote for that thing. You just aren't.
And constitutionally, I mean, if you look at it, anything that's not in the Constitution, abortion isn't explicitly in the Constitution. What we should do about it, it should be left up to the states. Like anything that's not laid out in the Constitution. Now, some argue that
agree.
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, it starts with life. So you can't deny anybody life. Now, some people argue that that's in the Constitution, but abortion specifically isn't in the Constitution, so it should be left up to the states.
Yeah,
I didn't see Nikki's answer, but
well, she just said it's impossible to have a federal ban.
Yeah,
because you need 60 senators, and we can have the majority in the Senate, but we're never going to have 60. It's never going to work that way. So I mean that we're spending a lot of time on something that, well, let's go ahead and make a public stand right now. I am pro-life, and everybody on that stage was pro-life. And then Jen Psaki tweets out last night. Did you see this one? No one supports abortion up until birth. That was her tweet. That's what they say this a lot. No one supports that.
That's such a lie.
That's a lie. You have 48 senators who did, and the guy you worked for does. So what are you talking about? Think before you tweet, Jen Psaki.
Well, and then you look at the numbers. I mean, there's a percentage of women having abortions after 22, like late-term abortions. And I mean, I forget the exact number. I want to say it's about 12,000 a year, where it's late-term abortion, where we're talking like 7 to 9 months.
Yeah, right.
Where women are having abortions then. And you look at the numbers and it's like, what do you mean? 12,000 women are for late-term abortion. Like there's 12,000 a year.
It's like, of course, that's what you support. You want no limits on it. That's the question. That's the question that needs to be asked. what is acceptable? What's the threshold? What's the limit? Because right now, your party stands for no limits. None. That's not hyperbole. Check it out. It's exactly what they're doing. So for Psaki to be that stupid and say that last night is a definite misstep. Also, there's a good piece of audio, or actually it's better video, floating around out there. Fort Worth, Texas, at a school board meeting, the independent district board meeting in San Antonio, very liberal town, by the way. There's a guy there, a father, who did exactly what we asked people to do. That is, he went to the school board meeting and read out of a book called Flamer. This book is available in the children's library, in the library at school. Any kid can check it out and read it, right? So he started reading passages from that book, and they kicked him out. They kicked him out of the meeting. Why did they kick him out? Well, it was offensive. Well, the kids can read it. You said that's okay. I mean, this is what has to happen. You got to get these books. You got to find these books. You got to go to school board meetings and read them out loud.
Yeah.
If there's nothing wrong here, if I'm overreacting and I'm Hitler and I'm grabbing books and burning them, then here's an example of a book that's available. It works every time.
I'd love to see JB host one of these
Me too.
reading story hours and have him sit down with a book called Flamer and read it to children. I would love to see that. That'd be great. You'd be not the governor anymore.
It's going to be 100 today. Can you imagine JB's? I mean, that's some swampy stuff happening there.
I love what you shared on social media, Scott.
Yeah.
The butter cow.
Ladies, find a man who looks at you like JB looks at the butter cow. Yes. All right. Talk
In
to you
that
later.
picture, I saw 2 butter cows. One of them was wearing khakis.
Yeah. And one had that checkered shirt on. Yeah, no doubt. All right. See you later.
See you later, Scott Robbins. Scott Robbins, Scott's Takes. It happens every morning, Monday through Friday, about 7:35 a.m. You guys won't want to miss Scott Robbins tonight. If you want more belly laughs, tune in to Markley, Van Camp, and Robbins tonight at 8 on Cities 92.9. We got to talk about the Maui wildfires. I guess they put up barricades, and these barricades made it to where people couldn't leave the island during the fires. Morning, folks. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. Did you watch the debates last night, or did you watch the Tucker interview? I watched the entirety of the Tucker interview. It was great. I loved it. Now, Tucker didn't ask the hardball questions that I really wanted. He did kind of do some softballs. I didn't think Tucker was going to go into this doing softball questions because he's not known for that. Tucker is known. I mean, he's been critical of Trump on his show. He's been critical of Republicans. I mean, there was a point where Tucker had all of these primary candidates, interviewed all of them with this Blaze Media thing, and he obliterated a lot of them. They all got tucked, as I like to say. But there was not a whole lot of hardballs for Trump. Now, there was one hardball where they talked about Jeffrey Epstein. Trump had an amazing answer. He actually humbled himself and said that they screwed up, that the his attorney general screwed up and they didn't do an investigation. And that was a great interview. That question was a hard question. Do you think Jeffrey Epstein killed himself? And Trump says, yeah, I think it's possible that he killed himself because, and it is possible that he did kill himself. You look at, he had these beautiful homes, houses and things, and then he finds himself in prison charged with human trafficking to no one apparently, because who did he traffic those people to? Who was working with Jeffrey Epstein? We still don't know. There's a very simple question like, hey, he was charged with human trafficking. Who did he traffic humans to? Not just to himself. Trump answered that. He says, it's possible he killed himself, but it's also possible he was killed. And, it was kind of a wishy-washy answer, but he took blame, which is very rare. And I mean, taking blame and owning up to that. And I mean, he didn't take blame himself. He blamed, of course, Bill Barr and his incompetency, but he knew it was because the left was threatening impeachment against Bill Barr. And that's what he chalked it up to. The left lunatics were going to go after Bill Barr, and Bill Barr wanted to keep his position as Attorney General, and he didn't want to touch the Jeffrey Epstein thing because the Democrats would have impeached him over it. So that was a great answer on Trump's behalf. Donald did a great job. Now, Ron, I'm very devastated about the whole limp wrist thing where he goes, I don't know if I'm going to. And then he says, this is a stupid question, which I guess people are going to sit there and say that he took leadership and said that that was a dumb question. Hey, are you going to support Donald Trump if he's convicted and still the nominee? It's a tough question, but it's very obvious if you are a Republican, you support that nominee. And Donald Trump, these indictments, I mean, people, his worst enemies are saying that this is bullcrap. What's going on with these indictments? In fact, uh, Donald Trump during the Tucker interview just says the S word. He goes, it's bull blank, bullshit. And I mean, it is. His enemies even know that these indictments are crap. And we can see it. The American people aren't dumb. And Donald Trump said that in this interview as well. He says the American people know exactly what's going on with these indictments. And if he is convicted, it will be a wrongful conviction. Likely he will be convicted in a DC court. Come on. But he'll appeal it. And eventually the Supreme Court is going to shut this down and laugh it out like several of Jack Smith's political prosecutions, because that's what Jack Smith is known for. Need I point to Bob McDonnell, the Supreme Court, I think it was like 8-0, where they laughed him out and they said, look, this is a breach of power. Like, this is a power grab, dude. And this is threatening our separation of powers. You can't use your prosecutor power in this way. We have separation of powers for a reason in the United States. And he went after Bob McDonnell years ago, and he got shut down by the Supreme Court. So it's going to be a similar situation. But wrongful conviction, we know that if he's going to be convicted in this DC court. And to sit there and say that you wouldn't support him after everything Donald has done for you, come on, Ron. That was low, even for you, man. Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. You can tune in via YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Rumble. I'm live in studio. Now, these Maui wildfires, it just gets worse every single day. And I know it's heavy lifting, and we've got to get to it because you have to know what could happen if the left is in charge of all of the emergency protocols in your town, in your community, if you have a Democrat governor. Because imagine if a wildfire were to ravage the state of Illinois. Do you really think JB is going to care? Do you really think that your local officials here in the town of Normal are going to care? I don't think so. And the Democrats, when they have control of these entities like the siren, the fire hydrants, the power lines, when they have control over these things, they are mismanaged, and it can cause a lot of death, as we're seeing in Maui now. So Lahaina, this is a little town in Hawaii. Maui, I mean, the community was given no warning. The sirens were supposed to go off. The officials said that they didn't sound the sirens because they thought that the sirens would be best if it was a tsunami, and they never used the sirens for a fire before. And the guy said, I don't have any remorse for not sounding that siren. But this guy, his name's Nate, and he's a resident. And he said, look, if we would have had that siren, just 10-15 minutes of warning, if we would have gotten some sort of warning, there would have been more kids we could have saved. Now, he saved his family, his wife and 2 children, and he got the warning from his children because his children were home alone, and they called their dad, and they were like, Dad, the air smells like s'mores. And he goes, that means there's a fire. And the dad just, in a very heroic way, drove home, got the kids. Then they went and booked it towards this highway. But they were met with barricades and officials telling them to turn around back towards the fire, back towards the danger zone. Nate, he didn't listen. He did what any dad would do. and he drove around those barricades, and he drove over the barricades, and he got his family out of there, and he lived. And he says more people would have lived had they not listened to those officials and drove around those barricades when they had the chance. I've got more of that story here coming up next. Plus, David Paul Blumenshine joining me next to kind of give me his take on the primary debates, the Republican primary debates. Maybe he watched the Tucker Twitter video. I don't know. We'll see what David Paul Blumenshine thinks of it all. There was one devastating moment in the primary debates and one really cool moment in the Tucker Carlson interview. We'll touch on it next. Good morning, David Paul Blumenshine in studio this morning, and I'm so excited to talk about the primary debates, the Tucker Carlson interview. There were a lot of things that happened last night, and joining me to chat a little bit about it, David Paul Blumenshine, and probably about 30 minutes, I'm going to be talking about those Maui wildfires, the barricades that came up, and the people couldn't leave the island. And they were told to go back towards the fire to be burned alive by government officials. So we'll get to that in about 30 minutes. I do want to talk about the primary debate. What'd you watch last night?
I watched both. I watched Crowder covering the debate. It was entertaining. It literally was. You have to go watch it. These guys are just busting up. I mean, but I watched both. I was back and forth, but obviously I was able to fill in with some takes from each one of them, and I spent a few hours last night going through the material. So the $66,000 question, who won the debate? Is that what you want to know, Kat?
Yeah.
I would say the guy that raised his hand the highest when he was asked if he would vote for Trump.
That's Vivek.
That's Vivek. And, the guy next to him, Governor DeSantis, as much as I appreciate what he has done for the state of Florida, he literally looked to his left to see who was going to raise their hand.
For a second, before we get into limp wrist Ronnie, he was like, "Oh, do I look?"
No, he was literally looking. I mean, you watch the video.
He was looking around to see.
He was trying to put his thumb up in the air.
And then he tries to recover, and he tries to say, well, this is silly. Why would we even be asked this question? And blah, blah, blah. And he tries to play like, he tries to play it off like, we shouldn't even be asked this question. The question is what's ridiculous. No, Ron, your response is ridiculous. So after I saw that, I tuned out. I said, that's enough.
Like I said, watch Crowder. It's fun. He hits upon it.
Limp wrist.
He just nails it.
Yeah.
It would, we have a show coming up that we cover this.
David Paul Blumenshine, you watched Louder with Crowder.
I watched because it was one of the live feeds on Rumble. He had his guys in there and they were kind of yucking it up, and they were breaking in and just doing
things.
Because it needed to be done, because this is exactly what we thought it was going to be. The cumulative total of all of those candidates does not equal the percentage that Trump has right now.
Yeah, nobody won the debate because it wasn't really a debate for the presidential election. It's really like a competition to see who's going to be VP, maybe.
Well, and it was held in Milwaukee, which is where the convention is going to be. And all of those candidates were able to bring their people in. That's who the studio audience was. It wasn't a bunch of independents. It wasn't a bunch of moderates, normal people. That was a stacked audience.
Yeah, establishment chills, because all of those candidates are establishment, except maybe Vivek.
Exactly. And that's what I meant.
And Vivek doesn't have a very big team. In fact, Joanne Knittmeyer, she was there.
County Republican, Surus, yes. And you know what, Kat, the thing is tune in Saturday to Conservative Cat, because we're going to cover why it is that the super minority party in the state of Illinois is what it is with the Republicans, because this is a perfect example of this. There is one candidate only running for the Republican nomination who has put forth an agenda 47. Go hashtag Agenda 47. Trump has put it out there. But there is only one candidate for the past 8 years that has been willing to boldly and courageously pledge his life, his fortune, and his sacred honor. And that's what the Declaration of Independence is about. I'm getting sick and tired of what Bongino refers to as cutesy time, because this is what this is, cutesy time. It's not about, we are facing...
We're in a revolution right now.
A culture where they're trying to take away our liberties and our freedoms.
John Adams, there's an amazing quote where he says, the revolution started in the hearts and minds of people. We're there. There's a revolution going on right now. Now, we're not in wartime, but this revolution is being fought via our modern day printing press, which it was originally fought in 1776 via the printing press.
Yes.
Who is it? Thomas Paine, they tried to cancel.
Yeah.
social media. I mean, you're starting to see the censorship. The regime is losing control and they're freaking out. That's why they've got indictment after indictment after indictment. The
Without
COVID masks
question.
are coming back. And you're starting to see a rabid dog backed into a corner. And really, the question should be, what is this regime about ready to do? And Donald Trump touched on that in the Tucker interview. He goes,
he's asked the question about civil war.
yeah. Oh, I didn't catch that.
It's at the end.
Oh, it's at the end?
The last 3 minutes of the Tucker piece. Tucker specifically says, are we headed towards a civil war? He meant a true back in the days of Abraham Lincoln's Civil War. And I think Trump did a great job of handling it. He said, you're right. Passions are at an all-time high. Division is all-time high. Fear has been created. These people have really, what is the word I'm looking for? They haven't energized. Gaslighting. I mean, I don't know what else to say. It's gaslighting. It's continuing to fuel this dissension or this division, I should say. And so he said the passions are high, but he said the hate is high too. They really hate what is happening to our country.
Well, they hate the country. And he said that these
No. He's talking about the people on our side of the equation.
There's a lot of hate brewing on our side.
Because the hate is being brewed because we're watching our life, our liberty, and our pursuit of happiness being literally sucked out of our entire nation as we know.
Well, and to be asked the question, that was a hard question. I saw the question where Tucker said, what do you think's next? Are they going to kill you?
Yeah.
And to think about that for a second, just let that, like, what if somebody asked you, what if they kill you?
Yeah.
And he just remains very presidential and he keeps very calm. And he says, our country is in a very fragile place right now. And that was hey, you guys better not kill me because there will be complete chaos.
Wait a second.
And
Kat.
there will be a civil war that breaks out.
Kat, it says it in the Declaration of Independence. This is what the founding fathers were willing to go through. In fact, most of them lost their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. It's no different than yours truly, me, people that we know who are willing to be a voice in the wilderness about what is happening. You look at the depravity, the cultural decline. We are a nation in decline. It's in our school systems. It's in Hollywood. I mean, President Trump is 70 plus years of age, in his mid 70s. He's willing to pledge his life, his fortune, his sacred honor. He doesn't have to do this. He doesn't have to. He could play golf every day. His life isn't going to be impacted. But you know what? He truly loves America. And he loves what America stands for. And he loves the people because he understands that's what's created the greatest nation on this earth. And that's it. We are an exceptional nation. So,
and it's worth fighting for.
It is worth fighting for.
Before we take the break, I do want to play this clip for you. We've got it here where I think it was a literal murder on TV, live on television, where Vivek Ramaswamy just destroys Mike Pence. Here we go.
Yeah. You got people on this stage that won't even talk about issues like Social Security and Medicare. I mean, Vivek, you recently said a president can't do everything. Well, I got news for you, Vivek. I've been in the hallway. I've been in the West Wing. A president of the United States has to confront every crisis facing America. I will put our nation back on the path to growth and prosperity and restore fiscal responsibility, just as I did in Congress and as governor,
Mr. Vice President,
and when I was vice president.
But yeah,
hold on. You were named earlier. I'm going to give Vivek first.
We'll get to both.
Yeah, this isn't that complicated, guys. Unlock American energy. Drill, frack, burn coal, embrace nuclear. Put people back to work by no longer paying them more to stay at home. Reform the U.S. Fed, stabilize the U.S. dollar, and go to war. The only war that I will declare as U.S. president will be the war on the federal administrative state that is the source of those toxic regulations acting like a wet blanket on the economy.
So there you have it.
There you go.
Vivek Ramaswamy. And, you know, I don't know what Mike Pence was trying to do there, that Vivek doesn't care about Social Security, Medicare. I don't know who Mike Pence is talking to. I don't think people really, I mean, the people do care about that stuff. I'm not saying that, but
Mike Pence is basically posturing himself. I have no idea where this guy's going. And obviously he's got a his campaign's never going to get any traction. But that sure didn't help him. Those who stand on the side of the establishment that want to continue to play what, as I love the saying, cutesy time, they're going to fail. Vivek just hit him with a double barrel right between the eyes and said, here's what we need to be talking about. This country and the decline of this country under the administration, this Marxist administration of Joe Biden and the ilk like that, the Sal Alinsky's, the Rules for Radicals, the Barack Obamas. This is a legacy of Barack Obama. This is exactly what these folks want. They want the climate hysteria, which, Vivek was the only one to stand up and say, you know what, that's why they're going to shut down the country again, or try to, is because of the climate change. And it has something to do with viruses, I'm sure. And therefore you need a mask because climate change is affecting the air quality. And who knows? I mean, these folks just continue to make it up every day because they have nothing else. They're never going to improve anything. Tell me something you've improved.
Nothing. Crickets. Yeah. There's nothing that they have improved. And Vivek talks about, we need to stop taxing people to death. We need to stop weaponizing these agencies via their regulations against the American people. And that's what he was saying. He says we need to gut the whole system. We can't talk about Social Security. We can't talk about Medicare if nobody has money in their pocket at all, and if we're eating bugs, because that's where we're going, folks.
We have so many obstructionists in our government right now, the bureaucrats that make up Washington, D.C. A 50% reduction is a good start. A 75% reduction is what we truly need. And in some agencies like the FBI, we need to clean out 85 to 95% and start over.
You're listening to The Morning Buzz. David Paul Blumenshine, thanks for joining me in studio today. I appreciate you.
Don't forget Conservative Cat on Saturday. You can hear some more about this.
We're going to hear more about specifically Illinois.
Yes.
And the Republican Party and how it's...
Train wreck, dumpster fire, a clown car in reverse at warp speed.
I'll be back next. Wowza. It was amazing. Prayer actually really does save lives. Okay, prayer saves lives. And I have to tell you all about a quick testimony. Yesterday, I was baptized. I couldn't invite all my friends and family. I could have done it in front of everybody I know. But it was just a quick baptism at my pastor's pool. And I have to share my testimony. So back in 2020, we're going to get to this here because Oliver Anthony's new song is out and it talks about this. In 2020, life really started to crumble for me, like you. And the pandemic took my job. I suffered a lot of personal things. A friend came over and told me, pray out loud and see what happens. Just pray out loud, see what happens. Now, I've always been a Christian, but I didn't attend church regularly during college while I was at Illinois State University. And I'd go with my parents, and I've always been a Christian, always loved God. But that moment when I just fell to my knees, prayed out this prayer out loud, a light turned on in my life the next day. The next day, everything started to get better. And like I said, sorry I couldn't invite you, but you guys can go check it out on social media. I'll post it on the Morning Buzz page. I was baptized and took my faith to a whole new level, made a public profession of my faith. And thank you to all of those who came. I appreciate it. 309-451-9299. Have you been baptized? Wake up, pray up. We're going to need a lot of Jesus to get through this story. The Maui wildfires, folks. Not good. This is going to be some heavy lifting for the next 10 minutes, but I promise we're going to get to Oliver Anthony's song. Then we're also going to talk a little bit about CNN saying that the COVID-19 restrictions are coming back and Tucker Carlson asking the question of Donald Trump, did Jeffrey Epstein kill himself? And Donald Trump had an amazing answer. He humbled himself. And that doesn't happen a whole lot with Donald Trump. He's got a big ego. So we're going to get to all of that here on the Morning Buzz. I'm live in studio, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Rumble. You can like, love, share the program with your friends. I encourage that. And you can also interact with me via the text line. That's 309-451-9299. Okay. So, Maui wildfires. I've got to share Nate's story with you because nobody else is going to share it, and I have to share it. Okay. I feel compelled to share this story. It's heavy. It's heavy. So, buckle in. So, the Maui wildfires, this is just a disaster. I mean, the sirens didn't go off. The guy in charge of hitting a damn button couldn't hit the damn button and let people know that there was a fire. He said that he was worried that people would think that there was a tsunami and they would head towards the mountains and towards the mountainside because that's where you go. You try to get to higher ground when there's a tsunami. So people go to the mountainside when they hear the sirens. That's typically for tsunamis. Now, it's come out that the governor actually says that he wished that the siren would have been blared, would have been sounded, but he's still sticking by the official who has resigned now in disgrace for not sounding that alarm. The siren, this resident says, would have helped them. He said, if we would have just had a 10, 15 minutes, extra 10, 15 minutes, if I would have had that warning, then I think I could have saved a lot more kids. So Nate, he tells the AP that he escaped the fires with his wife and 2 children. Now, how did he find out about the fires? Well, his kids were at home that day. They weren't in school. The schools were all canceled that day, and they weren't in school. And they call up Dad, and they're like, Dad, the air smells like s'mores. And Dad, right away, he's like, that means fire. So he goes home. The neighborhood full of kids, home alone. The fires came through. Nate and his family tried to leave Lahaina, which is this town on the Maui Island, and they left the town. They got into the car after the kids said they smelled smoke. They got into the car. They left and they drove to the highway, but they were confronted with barricades and this crew. And the crew was directing everybody to turn back to the downed electric pole, due to downed electric poles. They say that, they had to barricade the roads off because of these downed electric poles. And they're turning people back towards the fire. There's fire the other direction. And they're wanting to get onto the highway to get out of there. And Nate says this, now, nobody realized how little time we had. Like, even us being from the heart of the fire, we didn't comprehend. Like, we literally had minutes, and one wrong turn, we would have all been dead. So what did Nate do? He went around the barricade. He didn't listen to the crews. He went around the barricade and saved his entire family. Now they've gone back to Lahaina, the town, after it's been scorched, and he tells the story about how his son went to the mall to see a friend, and the son ran to the friend, and kids have no filter, and they went back to the Lahaina, and they went to this mall, and the kid starts rambling off who died to the son who comes back to the town. And he says, this kid's dead, that kid's dead. And all of this boy's friends are dead. The boy managed to get out with Nate, his dad, because they went around the barricade. And the one kid says nobody had any warning. Nobody knew that there was fires happening. Now, those who did run from the flames got into their cars and, just left Lahaina and went around that barricade. They survived. The barricade was blocking access to this highway, and many cars, they turned around and they headed back towards the danger zone. Families drove around the barricade. Some of them did, and they survived. Those that didn't drive around that barricade likely perished. Okay, now AP reports dozens of others found themselves in a hellscape, their cars jammed together on this narrow road surrounded by flames. And, their people died in their cars while they were trying to run to safety. It's just so sad. Many of those missing are believed to be children. Schools were closed that day, like I said, and the fires ripped through due to some power outages. The children were sent home and they were told, hey, go stay with your elderly relatives. But there were videos show that how this fire all started. And I've told you this all week. The fire started with these down power lines. They caught some brush on fire, and then the wind just takes it and it ignites all of the brush on the island. And we're looking at about 1,000 people missing. Likely they're never going to be identified. The town was 13,000 strong, and it's been completely leveled. Now, I've shared stories with you, heartbreaking stories. I shared with you yesterday the 14-year-old boy found clutching his family's dead dog, his remains. The police wouldn't let the family in because it was just such a horrific scene. And then there's the 7-year-old girl, another story. She was found burned to death along with her entire family in a smoldering car. They were unable to get out. Now, the governor has said that the state is looking to acquire that land, and he says that he wished the sirens would have been sounded. But there's all kinds of incompetence. So the Hawaii Energy, they should have de-electrified those power lines. That would have helped in this brush fire. It would have not caused it to catch on fire. It wouldn't have ignited it had those power lines been de-electrified like they were told to do. But they couldn't do it, the Hawaii Energy, because they didn't have the infrastructure to do it, because they were so worried about renewable energy. They were worried about launching this new thing where they were going to be completely on wind and solar. So they didn't de-electrify those power lines. So the power lines come down. Now, the brush is the way it is because Democrats and leftists are against controlled burns, and they're against managing land, and non-native grasslands have been growing amok, and the brush is just terrible. There haven't been any controlled burns. They need to manage the agriculture there, and they haven't done that. So the fire just happened because of incompetency, government incompetency. And it wasn't put out because of government incompetency. So the guy in charge of the water, he was supposed to fill the fire hydrants for the firefighters to put out the fire. He didn't do that for 5 hours. He didn't fill the fire hydrants. He has stepped down from his position as well. Now we're finding out that there were these barricades. And what's interesting here is, the sirens, had they been sound, I think it would have helped people, given them some sort of warning, hey, this is happening. I don't think people would have went for the hills. Now, there was a report from the AP, Associated Press, where one guy went towards the hills above the flames, and he was actually safe. So even if they went to the hills to try to get to above ground, they might have actually survived. He was able to actually rescue people and pull survivors out of the rubble. This guy was. So he actually helped people. And maybe heading to the hills wouldn't have been a bad thing had the sirens been blared. So Ryan, he texts in this morning and he says, this is just an example of what could happen if you allow leftists to control all aspects of emergency powers before and after an emergency. And we need to remember that here in the state of Illinois. This is what happens when you let leftists and Democrats have control over emergency powers. We've already seen it kind of here in Illinois. That Dust Bowl totally could have been prevented on 55. That pile up over 50 people, I think it was, that died. That's because of green weenie policies that leftists love so much. They say no till, no till, no till because it causes carbon emissions or methane. I don't know. They just are against it. And what could have happened was, hey, if we tilled up all the land, the agriculture surrounding these highways, we wouldn't have this dust that comes up over the top of our fields, and the dust wouldn't have been so bad that day. I don't know. Just remember this story when you vote for a Democrat or a leftist next time. Know that this could happen to you and your state. And I wouldn't be shocked if Governor J.B. Pritzker were to come out and say, yeah, the state's going to acquire the land. What? Wait a second. Back up a second. All right, we're going to be back. This is the Morning Buzz. You can text in 309-451-9299. We're going to be back talking about the Tucker Twitter interview. I watched that in its entirety almost. I didn't catch the last few minutes. I think I watched about 30 minutes of it. And then I watched a little bit of the primary debates. There was one moment in the debate that made me want to shut the TV off, and I did. I'll tell you about it here next. I know. Lahaina's local government had a plan for everything. They did. None of it was incompetence. We need to swallow the fact that Lahaina was a mass murder, and it can happen to all of us too. They're just getting started. Warning shots. Warning shots. When a regime is backed into a corner, um, you know, what will begin to happen? Are they securing this island because they're afraid of Donald Trump? Are they wanting the state to acquire this island? I don't know. Yeah, it's a hard pill to swallow, but Becky, I don't think you're far off. I mean, this level of incompetence, if it was incompetence, I don't know. Something happened. Something happened. There was discussion about zoning ordinances prior to this, and people were not wanting to rezone the land. Um, People were fighting that. It hadn't been changed since 1960. That was happening. So there was a lot of political strife, I guess, on the island or in that county, Maui County. And the establishment, the local government, wasn't getting their way when it came to that ordinance. They wanted to change it. Now, I find it interesting that none of Oprah's mansion was singed. There was a line of, I think Zuckerberg has a mansion there that wasn't singed. Not a blade of grass was touched with this line of mansions that celebrities have there. Yeah, I think it's a hard pill to swallow, but we are talking about a regime that is backed into a corner. So nothing is out of the realm of possibility. There's warning shots that people take when they feel backed into a corner, i.e., shooting elderly men for these posts about him wanting to assassinate. Which bad posts? Yes. If you're threatening to assassinate a president, I think that you should be charged and convicted. I don't know if you necessarily, I mean, this guy was elderly, right? And he was cooperating with the FBI. That whole story doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And of course, I'm talking about Craig Robertson. Craig Robertson he 75-year-old dude, he really just needed his laptop taken away. He kept posting things on Facebook, and I don't even know why Facebook allowed those things to stay up, but he was allegedly working with the FBI prior to that pre-dawn raid on his house where they kicked in the door. We still don't know if he was resisting arrest. We still don't know anything about the body cam footage and why it went black when they kicked in the door. Um, was it a warning shot? Was it a warning shot? Ezekiel, I like this King James version. When I say unto the wicked, thou shalt not surely die, thou givest him not warning, nor speakest the warn of wicked from his wicked ways to save his life, the same wicked man shall die. I like Ezekiel. Yes. What person ever threatened a president was killed for threatening one? Um, yeah, no, I don't think that that's ever happened in American history where you threaten a president and then you're killed for threatening him. He was working with the FBI, Craig Robertson. Now, there's been several people. I just brought you a story of Plainfield woman. So Plainfield, kind of my neck of the woods in Illinois. She's 41 years old, and she posted several times how she wanted to shoot Barron Trump, the son of Donald Trump, and Donald Trump straight in the face. And she admitted to sending those emails to a public education institution. She's a public school teacher, and she didn't have a pre-dawn raid. Okay, so I can't think of a time in history where we just start busting in people's doors for being crazy. I'm not saying Craig Robertson's posts weren't crazy, and he definitely was, I believe, threatening the president's life. Um, I don't think legitimately, right? There is all kinds of things legally that constitutes as a threat. You have to have intention, you have to have a plan, and you can't just say, or you can't just lock somebody up for saying, "Yeah, oh, I could just kill that guy." That's like freedom of speech. Like there's a limit to what constitutes as threatening. Okay, so I don't know if these were legit threats or if he was just kind of venting on his computer and he's 75 years old, possibly senile, frustrated obviously with the political world, probably consuming way too much news in his free time. And he was an elderly man. Okay, so I don't know how much of a threat he truly was. And from what I heard, he was overweight. Um, I don't know how much of a threat he would have really been to the president, Joe Biden. I've got no clue, because the body cam goes black and we don't even really truly know if he was resisting arrest. But yeah, if you make legitimate threats, I think that you should be arrested and charged with threatening the president, a threatening assassination. We can't have that, right? Or threatening to kill anybody. You should be arrested and convicted of crimes that you commit. I don't know if a death sentence in a pre-dawn raid was necessarily the right answer. First, Trump slamming Joe Biden for taking a beach vacation and not being able to work the beach chairs, the lawn chairs. Yeah, that was pretty funny in the Tucker Carlson interview last night. I watched that. I watched that almost in its entirety. Now, David Paul joined me in studio today, informed me of a couple of things towards the end. Tucker Carlson throwing some more hardballs at Donald Trump. Now, I thought he was throwing some softballs. Now, there were a couple of questions that were really tough to answer. And there was a moment that I really liked when Tucker asked, "Hey, did Jeffrey Epstein kill himself? And do you think he killed himself?" And Trump, he gave a pretty good answer. I liked it a lot. Next, I do want to talk about how explosive this interview was with Trump and the views. So within an hour, we were of it being posted, we're looking at 75 million views. Now it's like, I'm sure approaching 200 million views on X, formerly known as Twitter. Next, I do want to talk about Oliver Anthony. He blasts the people who blindly believe in the media. Turn the TV off. Just turn the TV off. If you need help finding new news and alternative news, independent journalism, I can help you. Just text in at 309-451-9299. Revolver News, Gateway Pundit, Post Millennial. There's all kinds of different national news networks that you can use to consume things. These are independent people. These people are not beholden to big investors like BlackRock. They're not corporations. They have your interest in mind because a lot of these places are subscriber supported, uh, or they have, mom and pop kind of startup sponsors, right? Where they have sponsors that believe in them and they believe in their sponsors. And it's a truly healthy relationship, and they are able to be beholden to the people because they aren't nervous that their big investors are going to pull their money out of it and turn off all of their lights. So if you need help, 309-451-9299. Oliver Anthony blasting people for believing in the media blindly, and he writes this song. It's an amazing banger. I love it. It's called I Want to Go Home, and it has a very personal touch to it. So we're going to get to that. Now, Trump, he said that the Democrats are sick people and that they hate our country. He said this after he was asked the very tough question. And imagine being asked that question. Do you think they're going to kill you? That's what Tucker asked Trump. Imagine getting that question. Like at this point, like what other candidate, Ron, Vivek, Nikki Haley, Chris Christie, Mike Pence, what other candidate is going to be asked that question? They're not. They're not going to be asked that question because they haven't given up everything. They haven't been attacked the way Donald Trump has via these indictments, the impeachments. I mean, the list goes on, the hoaxes, the collusion, the Russia collusion hoax, right? I mean, he has been attacked. And the only thing that they've got left is to kill him. That's just what history tells us. And Donald Trump says they're sick people, they hate our country, and the US is very fragile. So without saying it, he said my death would probably send us into some sort of civil war. But he says that the U.S. is in a very fragile state because we've got him cornered. This is not a regime that thinks that Donald Trump is on the ropes. This is not a regime that thinks that they're winning. This is a regime in full panic mode. They're losing control of the narrative. They've started to seed a narrative and leak out this narrative via the New York Times Atlantic that we're not even going to have an election anymore. That elections are, quote, anti-democratic. And then I'm quoting another headline here from the Atlantic, Americans vote too much. So you're starting to see they're on the regime is on the ropes and they're freaking out. So Donald Trump, he said that there's tremendous spirit out there. When he ran in 2016, he said there's even more in 2020. He goes, I've never seen spirit like this. Even coming down here, just the people on the road are absolutely going crazy. And John Adams said it, the revolution didn't start with bullets. It didn't start with the Revolutionary War, 1776. It was a revolution in the minds and in the hearts of people. That's where it started. And then it went to the printing press. And our modern day printing press is social media and this rise of independent journalism. And we're starting to see the revolution play itself out. We're in a revolution at this point. We're looking to take the country back, right? This MAGA movement, whatever you want to call it, there's something going on and it's electric. And he points that out in the debate or in the interview. And then he talks about crooked Joe Biden. And he goes, I've never seen spirit like this. The reason is because of crooked Joe Biden, and he's a bad guy. He's the worst president we've ever had in the country. And I don't think he's going to make it to the end of the gate. So he thinks that Joe Biden isn't even going to be the nominee, I believe. That's what he says. He says, I think he's worse mentally than he is physically. And he's not even all that great physically because you look at him, he can't even pick up his feet out of the grass. And he goes, I know it's only 2 inches at the at the White House, the grass. So he can't even pick up his feet 2 inches. And then he mentioned Joe Biden, hilarious. He goes, I love when they put pictures out of him on the beach because he looks terrible, totally terrible out on the beach, folks. Terrible because he can't even pick up the chair. Those things are light, very light. And he talks about, how being at the beach, being on all these vacations, that's not what a president is supposed to be doing. He said he's supposed to be doing work in getting us out of this horrible, horrible war that's going on in Russia, Ukraine. Russians, Ukrainians, they're all dying. And he said it could have very easily been ended with him and it wouldn't have even started with him in office. So Vivek Ramaswamy was at the debate, and he totally annihilated Mike Pence during the Republican debate. And if you want my take, who won the debate, definitely Vivek. Even though all of them cumulatively up there, Chris Christie, Vivek, Ron, Nikki Haley, Mike Pence, Asa Hutchinson, right? All of them combined, their totals, when you look at the polling, nowhere near Donald Trump. Donald Trump is going to be the nominee. And Tucker Carlson, he posted this interview with Donald Trump. And you just look at this. Nobody saw the debate because you're looking at this Twitter. I mean, it's over 100 million views, 75 million within the first hour of it being posted. And I'm excited. Now, one thing happened at the debate that we need to pay attention to, and that's Fox News blocking with their body Donald Trump Jr. They didn't allow him to come be a surrogate for his father and stand in as a surrogate in the spin room, which incredible. I mean, that is so undemocratic. It's not even funny. Yeah, you guys are totally free speech network. No, you're not, Fox. Okay. Fox News is backing Ron DeSanctimonious like crazy, and it's a lost cause. I'm sorry, Fox, but it's a lost cause because Ron totally screwed up at the debate last night. I'll tell you what he did next. I did not know this. This is pretty interesting. I didn't know that, Mike Donaldson. Thanks so much for tuning in and let me know that Donald Trump was born June 14th, 1946. There was a total lunar eclipse. I didn't know that. I'd have to look into that. That's kind of interesting. Yeah, no, I do think that President Donald Trump is the only one who can really gut the administrative state, gut the bureaucracy because he's pissed, right? And one thing that Tucker didn't do during that interview that I really wish he would have, hey, why give the keys to Fauci during the 2020 pandemic? Why take the vaccine? Are you going to get a booster? These are the questions I really wanted Tucker to ask. I didn't catch those questions. I don't think he asked them in the last 10 minutes. But he did ask some hardballs, one of them being the Jeffrey Epstein thing. Hey, did Jeffrey Epstein kill himself? Now, Trump doesn't humble himself all that much. What Trump does is he tends to, shift blame, and he kind of did that with Bill Barr. But you can see the humility on his face, and he knew that when he was asked that question, that investigation should have happened. And it didn't because Bill Barr was too worried about his position and retaining his seat as the attorney general and not being impeached by the left lunatics. So Donald Trump humbled himself and said, yeah, that was a big mess up. And, Tucker didn't let him get away with it. Tucker said, hey, that's your attorney general. That's on you, dude. He's your attorney general. And you just let him get away with not investigating a human trafficker. And he said, we should have done better. In this clip, he goes, that was wrong. He should have done better. And he was worried about impeachment rather than catching a human trafficker. I think it's funny. Jeffrey Epstein, right? He's charged with human trafficking, but apparently he trafficked those humans to nobody because, but who else was charged? Somebody had to have accepted the trafficked humans that he was trafficking, and those people should be sitting in jail. Where is the list? Where is Jeffrey Epstein's client list? We want it. And Tucker, I mean, he just says, yeah, no, I believe that Jeffrey Epstein was killed. He didn't kill himself. Now, Trump kind of was wishy-washy on it. I mean, he said it without saying it, that it's possible. But it is possible that he also killed himself, right? I mean, he lost all of this fame, fortune. Now he was sitting in a jail cell. And it could have been that he took his life. But I would imagine somebody like Jeffrey Epstein, as evil as he is, these people tend to want to stay alive just because their egos won't allow them to die, right? I find it very hard to believe that Jeffrey Epstein killed himself. I'm just going to say that. And now, is it possible? Yes. So we're going to talk a little bit about Vivek Ramaswamy, Ron DeSanctimonious doing something that was wild, and then Don Trump Jr. And his wife Kim. They tried to go into the post-debate spin room, and they were blocked physically from being allowed into the spin room. So fake news, it's not strong enough for places like CNN, MSNBC. It's not strong enough even for me, Fox News at this point, because Fox News, they did a very undemocratic thing last night by not allowing those surrogates to be in that spin room. And Tucker and Trump, they talked about Tucker's firing from Fox News and how it was a big mistake. And I've got to tell you, the ratings probably last night on that primary weren't good. Fox News is trying to stay relevant. They actually, inside baseball here, media blackout, they didn't put it up on YouTube, so a lot of people couldn't stream it, the primary debate. You had to tune in via TV and watch it. Now, we carried it via audio here because we're a Fox affiliate still, or am. Well, we are a Fox affiliate. But we carried it, and you can go watch the YouTube video, Kev Ferris with Speechless and Josh Bender talk about it. Now, full disclosure, I think that Josh Bender is a total DeSantis guy, so if you are pro DeSantis, you might want to go check out that video. Josh Bender is, and Kev, I think, is also for Ron DeSantis, so it's probably a very interesting take that they've got. I'm hoping that I can catch it today, the YouTube video that they put out there, their live stream of the primary debates. Now, I just did not like Ron DeSantis doing this limp wrist thing, and I'm going to get into exactly what that means coming up in just about 30 seconds. Whoa! Now I don't think this was an accident. Prigozhin, Yevgeny Prigozhin, he has been confirmed dead this morning. This is breaking news. He's the Wagner leader. He led this Wagner coup, which really wasn't a coup. It was a coup psyop, and it wasn't real. But he led this fake coup up to, and I think that he pocketed money, and he was playing the US government, and maybe the US government was behind it. I don't know. I've talked about it before on the show, but his private jet crashed in Russia, and he's been confirmed dead. So that's breaking news, folks. This morning on The Buzz, you can see me live in studio, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Well, that's going to do it for our show. Wow. That show went by fast. As always, you can catch the podcast, everything that we talked about this morning, cities929.com. You can catch it on YouTube. That's Cat Peterson 929. We'll be back again tomorrow morning, bright and early, 6 a.m. in the morning. I'll catch you later. Love you.